Scott, welcome to the ELN studio. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So what is the business case for early childhood education? I mean, that's really with you where I want to start. Why does it matter to companies and commerce that how a 3-year-old learns?
That's the heart of that's really the question that I asked most often when I get more engaged with early childhood education, was the economic question. There's research that's been done that would indicate there's a business case to support ECE. The numbers vary, but the latest information that I've had access to shows that it could be a low of 3 to a high of 6 to 1 in terms of every dollar invested. It's always been that sort of what are the real economic reasons behind ECE? Yeah. And I would argue that it starts with this. And where that comes from is that it's women going back into the workforce. That's where the lift comes from, so that they are then able to participate, contribute to GDP, and then as a result create some economic
So
wealth.
you're really talking about, you commissioned a report by the conference board.
Correct.
And that report came out not only with that data, but it was really very instructive for you, wasn't it, around the role that business and investment can play in early learning?
It was the lights went on for me. Because up until that time, Chris, my mother's foundation, the Margaret and Wallace McCain Family Foundation, has spent 10 or 12 years working on the early childhood year studies from Fraser Mustard, and the first, second, third. They're now working on version 4. And a lot of it was developing content, doing research, helping with policy, setting up lobbying advocacy groups to governments. But not enough emphasis was on what's the economic model that business people could then get their head around and sell it to people in government, people in their own private companies as, look, this is just good economic policy, because everybody knows things like this cost money.
And so I want to talk to you about inspiring and getting those public policy folks in, because I know that that's something that you've worked on as well. But when you talk to other business leaders and you say to them, look, I know this is going to sound crazy, but you want to know what you want to invest in? Early childhood development, early childhood learning. What do they say to you?
Well, I probably haven't asked that enough, so I'm guilty. But what I suspect I'm going to hear is lack of knowledge on the importance of why it's important when the brain is developing. Because I don't think everybody, contrary to what you and I may think, I don't think everybody fully understands that. Yeah. So there's an education process. So first of all, they're going to say, well, that's fine. I've got 10 other things on my plate that I've been asked to invest in or get behind, and so why yours versus theirs? So you have to be really clever in your elevator speech.
There are a lot of good causes out there.
There are many, and trust me, the people that have got influence, private sector leaders, corporate, public, private, they're inundated with people that want their leadership and their power and their influence to help raise their cause. So ECE is no different. I haven't done enough of it yet. I expect I'll have to do more in the future, and I'm excited about it.
And thanks to the report that you helped create with the conference board, more and more evidence around the economic benefit is there. On some level, it becomes a communication opportunity challenge.
Totally. That's my biggest, I've been on my mother's foundation for 12 years. Yeah. And the first 8 or 10 I was busy working, so I didn't have the time in it. But the last 3 or 4, it's been clear to me that, look, the information is irrefutable. We just heard from several panel discussion candidates that, particularly the people, the PhDs, that really understand brain development. Even the leaders in different universities are saying, the information's there, it's irrefutable. But the message isn't getting out, and now it's becoming a communication challenge, I would argue. And I think my mother's foundation is being directed towards, we have to put more money into communication. The message is clear. It's like, if you want to argue, it's like climate change. I know everybody doesn't agree with it, but I think the science would show that it's a real issue.
Now, something that surprised me, you have argued, and as we've been discussing, that business leaders need to convince lawmakers to do more to support early childhood education. And I'd expect that type of leadership, I would almost expect the inverse, that public sector leaders would be inspiring the business leaders. Why do you see it the way you see it?
Because it's very simple, in my view, Chris. The lawmakers, at least I'll speak on what's going on in Canada.
Yeah,
I think probably the United States is a little different, but certainly in Canada, the lawmakers are inundated with many different priorities that they have to either deal with or face or consider. ECE is just one. So from their perspective, they look at this to some extent to say, okay, this is going to cost money. I have to go to my constituents and or my colleagues in cabinet or provincial colleagues or federal, and convince them that this is money well worth spent. And if we're going to spend more, it could involve a higher tax. Nobody wants, the politicians don't like higher tax. No. So they either have to face the priority of, we have to prioritize, in which case we might take money from here to there and keep the taxes level. That's a political issue. Or they have to raise taxes. In either case, business leaders have to convince them that it's important to face that decision and advocate, because they're just nervous of it. They don't want to go to their constituents to raise taxes. They know it's a sensitive issue because child care in the home is still a cultural thing. And they need private sector people to push them and to say, look, it's okay. I'll take the heat. I'm in private sector. You want to get elected. I get it. I want social change. And so let me take some of that burden and give you some cover.
And just to be clear, because the education system in Canada has more of a push toward public education than private, and that balance is perhaps different in Canada. I don't hear you again, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not saying that early childhood education needs to be a solely private sector solution.
No, I'm not saying that at all. We got to be really clear on that. I'm saying is private, and you could say public sector companies or whatever. It doesn't matter. I shouldn't distinguish between private or public, because public sector leaders can do the same thing. I'm advocating education, public education, be available for everybody. I fundamentally believe that when you go to school in grades 6 to 12, which is what I grew up in, and probably yourself, grade 1 to 12, normal, that because of the knowledge today, had we known this before, it should be from 3 to 12. It's that simple, because the world has moved and the knowledge base is such that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that a lot of different things that are going on in Canada and the US, whether it be crime, whether it be literacy, whether it be numeracy skills, would be far better off if we could teach these kids at age 3 in a structured learning environment to 6. They'd be far ahead of it. In Canada, I'm very passionate about this has to be accessible to everyone, because kids that can't afford the care, they need that opportunity to get their head above water. That is the single biggest thing they need to get to the level where you want to compete and want to be good.
Scott, to close out, for your foundation, for your effort, for where your mind is at, what's next? Is it communication? Is it doing more research and putting together more data? What's next?
Communication. It's my number one goal now. I've convinced my mother and the foundation that they need to hire. We've got the 2 scientists that have done the content and the platform. It's like we've built the basement floor, we've got the first floor and second floor. We need to friggin' put the top floor and the roof on this thing, and I believe that's going to be done through communication. We have all the facts. We don't need any more research. It's all good, but we don't need that. What we need to find ways to communicate better, and it could be in any forms of ways, whether it be corporate, public, private sponsorships, could be conferences like this, could be getting more political people on side, but we have to do a better job communicating our message, and that's what I'm passionate about.
The passion comes through. You're doing the communicating even right now, and thank you for coming by our studio.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.